A hand closed around her throat, and time seemed to split into a moment, frozen in eternity. Grace Harrison entered 1,950 days of torture. But when Zachary Reno's fingers tightened around her trochee, something inside her finale broke. The turning point was not only hers, but also the explosion of 3 years of silence, as if shattered into 1,000 pieces of glass. "Please," Grace whispered. Her voice was barely audible. "Don't make meadow this, but we're getting ahead of ourselves to understand how a 90-pound strata student could break the star quarterback's wrist in front of the entire school. We need Togo back to the time when Bayangin Vabel was the only servable strategy. Back to the day she made a promise to a girl who was no longer there. Back to the day when everything changed before she witnessed a 90-pound strata student break Thester quarterback's wrist." Tuesday, November 12th, 24/7. Mr. Bennett's history lesson continued monotonously. He talked about military strategy. His Heisman voice mingled with the hum of the fluorescent lights. Grace sat in her usual seat in the third row at the back against the wall in the stealth zone. She calculated everything carefully, far enough to avoid attention, close enough to thrill, to limit angles of attack, with a clear line of sight to both exits. "Can anyone tell me what the ODA cycle is?" asked Mr. Bennett, looking around the class with tired eyes. Zachary's hand immediately went up. "Of course I can." The gold guy never missed an opportunity to shine, especially when Logan Peterson was recording everything on his fiend. Hunter Jackson was nodding like a well-trained puppeteer. "This is a military observation, sir," Zachary said, with the typical confidence of someone who had never heard the word no. "How to observe the enemy and all that." A Rari chuckle rang out through the class. Grace's fingers tightened around the pen. "Wrong, so wrong, it hurts. The cycle is to observe, navigate, decide, act. So much more to Ethan just looking. It's processing Informian faster than your opponent. This is an insight into his decision-making cycle." Mr. Bennett's eyes swept around the classroom again. Grace's hands hooked slightly as she raised it. This movement seemed to her like lifting 1,000 kilograms. 28 pairs of eyes turned to her. Most of them saw her for the first time in weeks. "Miss Harrison." She cleared her throat. "The WUDA cycle means to observe, navigate, decide, act." It was developed by military strategist John Boyd. "The main thing is not just to observe, but to process the information and act faster than the enemy can react. If you can penetrate his OODA cycle, you can appear to be everywhere at once, creating confusion." "Thank you, Grace." "Excellent explanation." Mr. Bennett even smiled. Some of the ingenual made several students sit up straight. The silence that followed was deafening. Then someone started applauding. First one person, then two, then a small group. It was not a mockery, but a sincere admission from someone who, for the first time, really knew the answer. Grax dared to look at Zachary. His face turned an interesting shade of purple. The jaw was clenched so hard that you could hear the teeth grinding 10 feet away. Logan now pointed his phone at Zachary, capturing his humiliation in high definition. Hunter looked just awkward, huddled in his team jacket like a turtle. The call saved everyone from an awkward moment. The students hurried out of the classroom, eager to escape. Grace slowly and methodically packed her things, hoping that Trinity would leave first. No luck. "Hey, Einstein." Scary's voice cut through the whispers of the class like a rusty razor. "Beautiful performance." Grace didn't answer, didn't even look up. Maybe if she stays still enough, she'll fade back into invisibility. "I'm talking to you." His shadow fell on her desk. 188 centimeters of arrogant fury loomed over her figure, which was about 60 centimeters tall. "Do you think you are smart? You think you're better than me?" "I'm not thinking about anything," Grace answered quietly, not looking him in the eye. "I just answered a question." Logan walked around to the other side of her, his phone already recording. This is perfect. The nerd versus the king. This will get tons of views. After Denshin, Skakri whispered, leaning down so she could smell the protein shake on his breath. It's classroom 27. It's time to show someone where you belong. They left her there, her hands shaking as she clutched the straps of her backpack. Classroom 27, an old chemistry lab with no cameras, rarely checked by security. She knew this because she had memorized all the blind spots of that school. It was basic survival, what they didn't know, what no one knew. Grace Harrison had trained for this moment for 8 years. The memory hit here as she walked into detention. Every steeple code, memories of little feet on the gym mats. Again, Grace spread her legs wider. 8-year-old Grace adjusted her stance, bare feet searching balance on the worn blue mat. Her brother Daniel moved around like a shadow, sharp angles and a controller struck despite the tremor in his left hand. Do I have to learn this? Ash asked, tired and sweet after another 5 a.m. practice. Daniel's eyes darkened for a moment. He saw something far away. Because the world is full of predators, little warrior, and I will not always be there to protect you. The training was relentless. Brazilian before school, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on Mondays and Wednesdays, Krav Maga on Tuesdays and Thursdays, boxing on Fridays, meditation and stretching on the weekends, while the other kids played video games. Grace practiced dar bars and chokes while they watched cartoons, tearing, pressure points, and joint manipulation. Mateus, not about fighting. Why Daniel say this? He stretched at the end of class. It's a boot preparation. It's about having a choice. The most important thing is to have control. Promise me something, Grace. What? It's promise that you will only use the thief. You have absolutely knew the choice. If you can leave, leave. If you can run, run. Fight only one, cornered. And even then, use only the force necessary to escape. I promise. Why, she said, not realizing then how much this promise would cost. Real afternoon detention. Grace walked into the stuffy classroom where Mrs. Peterson was grading notebooks, unaware of the storm brewing in her students' lives. Another 12 boys were serving sentences for various offenses. Overdue assignments, dress code violations, typical tonnage, misbehavior. Grace sat by the window, calculating angles and distances out of habit. The phone rang, message from an unknown number. Tick-tock mouse. She removed it and pulled out her history textbook, but the words began to blur before her eyes. All she could think about was Emma, her best friend, the only friend of Dagor who had sat in this same class a year ago. To work off a sentence, serving a sentence for a crime, to be different. Emma Rodriguez was everything Grace was not. Extroverted, flamboyant, unafraid to take up space. Sure her heart on her sleeve, an A pride flag in her backpack. In a school that valued conformity above all else, shoes a walking target. They're just words, Grace said after another day of bullying. Don't let them get to you. CZ4. You to say, Emma replied, with tears streaming down her face. You're invisible. Ah, they can't even see you, and I'm a walking target. And I'm so tired. Grace, so damn tired of being strong. The persecution gradually increased, creeping up unnoticed. First, the whispers and notes, then the random pushes in Theho way. Then the Instagram account DDT to mocking her, and finally the bathroom incident. 3 girls cornered Emma and cut off her hair while she was resisting. Grace begged her to complain, offered to go to the principal with her. She even thought about breaking the promise she made to Daniel and teaching these girls a lesson they would not forget. But Emma rejected everything. They're winning. Grace, you don't understand. They always win. The director's daughter is one of them. The school board doesn't care. Our parents can't afford lawyers like theirs. We are anybody to them, less than nobody. Nothing. 2 weeks later, Emma never turned to school. Grace learned about this from Emma's mother at the funeral. Pills, a whole jar of her anxiety medication, mixed with vodka. The note contained, on live, words, "I'm tired of fighting." Grace stood by the edge, looked at Hereford's calm face, and made a new promise. "Not Daniel, but Emmy. I won't let anyone else believe the same thing as you. I will not allow silence to be the only option." And it hours. Work at where? Approaching zero. Grace's hands no longer shook. The breathing was controlled and measured. 4 counts to inhale, 4 counts to hold, 4 counts to exhale. Tell just as Daniel taught. She thought about the 3 guys who were waiting for her. Analyzed everything I knew. Abudiak 1. Zachary Reynolds. Star quarterback. 188 km tau. 90 kilograms. Right-handed. Since childhood, I have been sparing my left knee due to an injury in the 2nd grade. Aggressive, but lacking discipline. Relied on his size and intimidation rather than technique. His father was rumored to be a violent alcoholic who showed love through bruises. The cycle of violence continues. Logan Turson. Rich boy, playing ta. Height, 68 centimeters, maybe 77 kilograms. It's more dangerous with a phone than with fists. Everything for his content, desperately trying to gain recognition, views, and likes. His parents threw money at him instead of attention, leaving him empty and constantly playing for an audience that didn't really care. Hunter Jackson, copycat. Height, 83 centimeters, 86 kilograms. A foster child bouncing from home to home, clinging to Zachary and Logan. To belong somewhere, even if it's toxic, it's better than being alone. The most severe of the 3, but also the most unpredictable. Desperate people do desperate things. The bell rings. "The work is over," Mrs. Peterson announced without looking up.